Alright, hold on a little bit longer before I go into the detailed explanation for the placements of the films for my chronology. There's one last section for debunking the codename and reboot and other theories. This section I'll call film theory or film techniques. There are basically 5 film techniques in film theory that the Bond creators use that disprove James Bond is a reboot and a code name or multiverse or parallel universe or anyverse or Time Lord, etc., etc. These 5 techniques of film and literary creators are what lend to the truth that Bond is a single character from Connery to Craig. The first one is called God Factor and really is the umbrella to which all the others fall under, though it has some unique differences. And many of these techniques cross over with one another and can sometimes be a cocktail of more than one at times. This first one, God Factor, it's basically the idea that the writers, the producers, the directors, and other creators of a film are the gods of their story because they created it. What they do then is they inject themselves and their concepts or their beliefs into the film. It's because it's their creation and they're going to let you know it. So they do things to jolt the audience or communicate a concept through the characters and storyline. Some of the ways they do that are through cameos and making creative statements in the films. Some examples of cameos are like, if you take Lord of the Rings, you know that Peter Jackson, he's been in some of these, he puts himself in the films, and not only that, he puts his kids in the films also, but also, and this is part of the concept too, isn't just that they put themselves in, but they also change the story up a bit. Sometimes, like for example, with Peter Jackson in The Hobbit, he introduces Evangeline Lilly's character, but her character isn't even in the Hobbit novel. So it's an added aspect to build on the storyline or accentuate something that they're trying to say. Another example is Stan Lee. He pops up in all his Marvel movies. Shakespeare kind of did a similar thing. For the Bond series, the Bond franchise, a couple of these were Dana Broccoli. She was in, and this one's not well known, but she was in Thunderball. And she is, when Bond goes to dance with Domino, you can see her dancing in the background. Another cameo for Thunderball is Kevin McClory, the producer, one of the producers. It's right before that scene. Bond walks into the casino and he passes through the casino lobby to go play Baccarat with Emilio Largo. Well, McClory is sitting in a chair smoking a cigar. Some others are Cubby Dana, Lewis Gilbert, and Ken Adam are in Moonraker. Michael Wilson actually has the most cameos, from The Spy Who Loved Me to Spectre. He's in every single one of those films as a cameo for some, or either physically there or his voice is there. He apparently, I guess, is in Goldfinger. And his sons are actually, they've started to have some cameos in some of the films. One of them, Tomorrow Never Dies, and then another one was Skyfall. He's at the beginning in the bar scene when Bond is taking that shot with the scorpion on his hand. Some examples of, going back to Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson was a minor producer in The Spy Who Loved Me, and then started taking more of a major role as a more important producer. I think he was executive producer from Moonraker, and then he just started building his role as producer. Moving forward, some of the examples of statements or creative, the creative statements that they make, what some films are trying to make in regards to Bond. One of them is, if you watch the scene with Q in The World Is Not Enough, as he's being lowered, it's kind of, they're making the statement symbolically, Q's retiring, he's going to be gone. Or actually Desmond Llewellyn is retiring, not Q. But another concept, and this will come up later in a lot more detail, there is a statement that the producers are making in Skyfall. I call it the old versus new concept, and that's it's very blatant in that film. And just a quote to support this concept of the God factor, and really kind of all these techniques, is from the commentary Live and Let Die, and I believe this is the narrator that says it. I quote, "The script writers, directors, and producers purposely made events, situations, people, and items into Bond films from the novels, but purposely switched something up so that it would jolt the audience and show them who was in control of the story," end quote. So that's a pretty blatant, and this is out of the commentary for Live and Let Die. If you have the film, if you have the Blu-ray, you can go and you can look at that and you can find it. I don't know where it is. It was a long time ago that I wrote this down, but it's in there. The second technique is called breaking the fourth wall, and many of you are familiar with this. This falls under the umbrella of God factor, just as just about all these others that I'm going to talk about do also. What breaking the fourth wall is basically, it's revealing aspects of the film to the audience that break the boundary of the creators in film, so that the audience witnesses the creator's intent. It's the creators reaching out to the audience through the film. It's humor is quite often used, and as the form of communication for it. A few examples of this in Bond are M's comment in Casino Royale, "I miss the Cold War," and Lazenby's comment in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, "This never happened to the other fellow." Now, to further, take for example Lazenby's comment, he's breaking the fourth wall. It's just it's a technique used. It's not saying that literally Lazenby isn't even James Bond. That's not what's going on. And it's not saying that the James Bond character of Sean is different. It's just kind of it's a humorous comment. And it's basically saying, look, we're the same Bond, but haha, we're different. We're different actors, but we're the same. And like the definition of breaking the fourth wall says, he's basically just, we know he's a different actor, but we also know he's still the same James Bond. Some people say this has to do with Prince Charming, but I don't see the parallel accurate, because Cinderella ran away from Prince Charming also, and was left there holding a slipper. But I think there is kind of that hint in there of the idea that Tracy is his Cinderella. And this concept is closely used with tongue-in-cheek, and that's the next technique I'm going to discuss. Tongue-in-cheek is the concept of using humor to jolt the audience. Roger Moore's Bond uses this quite a bit, and we see this in Skyfall when Bond threatens to eject M from the Aston Martin. It's also used in the two examples above with Lazenby and M. And it really, for the Bond films, it really consists of dry British wit. Just their dry humor, their dry wit, and that's why, take for example, Lazenby's comment is just, it is supposed to be humorous. Even there's, I'm not going to really put it out there and talk about it because basically Peter Hunt talks about it. It was a comment that George had made, and they were looking for what to say, and then Peter Hunt was just like, where's that comment? Let's find that, get that comment, say that at the end of the opening, before the pre-credits opening. Ken Adam talks about this in the commentary for Diamonds Are Forever. He says this: so with the tongue-in-cheek approach, when we talk about these things, that was half the secret to all these Bonds, to come up with a tongue-in-cheek and at the same time believable approach to situations and decisions. So you even have, Ken Adam just basically lays it out there. He's talking about the tongue-in-cheek concept being something that is a consistent thing used with the Bond films. The fourth concept in the lineup is consistent character perspective. Okay, this is when a franchise will base itself on a character that is centrifugal to the series. The character is static, but the supporting characters move in and out, showing that the films in the franchise are the static character story. The character who exists in every single film of the franchise is who the films are about. So with Bond, he is the only consistent character in the films. M changes or is missing. M's not in For Your Eyes Only. Moneypenny changes or doesn't exist. So like in the first, mainly Quantum of Solace, because I have a theory about Casino Royale, but we'll come to it when we get there. Same with Q. He's not in every single film. He's not in Casino Royale or Quantum of Solace, and he changes 3 times. 4 actors, 3 different Qs. And then Leiter. We see Leiter isn't in every single film. So Bond is the character that the franchise is about. Some other examples of this are Stan Lee, up until his passing, makes a cameo in all his movies. R2-D2 was the only consistent recurring character in every single Star Wars film up until Solo. And now it seems that it might be just what they're talking about now is the Skywalker family, is what the franchise is about.